You're listening to the Joel Martin Mastery Podcast, home of the 2-hour deep dive interview with gold, platinum, and multi-platinum bands, including Stained, Blue Rodeo, The Arkells, Finger 11, Big Wreck, Moist, Bedouin Soundclash, I Mother Earth, Ill Scarlet, Neverending White Lights, Thornley, and many more. Please take a moment to subscribe to the podcast, as well as share, comment, and like. Now let's dive in to today's episode. Welcome, everyone, to today's episode of the podcast. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. We are joined by a very special guest. She's achieved a level of mastery as an entrepreneur and as the co-founder of Speaker Slam, which is one of the top speaking competitions on the planet. So welcome to the podcast, Rina Rovinelli. Rina, how are you? And how excited are you for your upcoming Momentum Conference that's in Toronto, November 19th, I believe? Why are you excited? What's going on here?
Thank you so much for having me. And I am excited. Now that we're back to live events, it's this like whirlwind of emotions and feelings and things that are coming up, because it's like being on pause for 2.5 years. And then it's the reins are let go and you're just going full force ahead. So I'm excited. I'm being propelled by our own momentum, but yeah, big things to come this year.
That's awesome. And we're going to dive into Speaker Slam, where the idea came from, how it got started, how it's progressed over the years, the challenges, the triumphs. We're going to go over everything. But maybe just to get started, what is this Momentum Conference? Why should our listeners be excited? A lot of them are in Ontario or in the GTA. This is driving distance for them. Why should they get excited about this?
Okay, so I've been running Speaker Slam for 6 years, and we have a certain kind of community. They're heart-centered, they're mission-driven, they're often new and emerging speakers. And for the longest time, all we had was competitions. And it got to a point where I was like, what can we create for them when they finish competing? What can the next step be, the evolution be for our speakers? And we came up with the Momentum Conference as an opportunity to have speakers take the stage and share and also get paid. We wanted to be one of the first conferences anywhere that was paying new and emerging speakers so that they could find opportunity with us. Actually, I have this vision that we're going to be what TEDx is one day, where people are vying for our stage because it's an opportunity for someone to be discovered. And so this is really, I say it's a conference where people lead with their humanity, not their ego. And it's going to be this room full of heart-centered entrepreneurs. We have passion speed share where people can get on stage. We have workshops, we have speaking, we have networking activities. It's going to be an incredible emotional experience, I think, for a lot of our community coming back together. So it's going to be really great.
I think what's cool also is these amazing speakers that are all connected through their love of speaking and communicating, and they all have a story to share. They're all remarkable people. I think it's cool, actually, that there's something that they can kind of lock arms on where it's not a competition. So the competition's great and it makes the cream rise to the top, but it's also probably nice for them to not always be competing, that they can actually go to this together and it's a moment and it's a community there.
Well, what's funny is that we have always said with Speaker Slam, it's a place where your fiercest competitor is also your biggest cheerleader. And you'll see if we ever have competitions, everyone's hugging each other, they're cheering for each other, they're promoting each other. And yet there still are people that say, I love to speak, but I don't have a competitive spirit, so there's no place for me. So I wanted to create a place. My partner and I wanted to create a space for people who didn't want to compete, but just had, something to share with the world.
Awesome. So I was excited for this interview, and I wanted to kick this off, this episode of the podcast. I wanted to kick it off powerfully. So I reached out to someone remarkable and I got some kind words. So this is from a Juno nominated singer-songwriter. This is from Peter Katz, who's incredible. These are some kind words that he sent in. So he says, I love Rina. She's an awesome human. I really admire what her and Dan have built. She's a great example of someone having a dream around something that didn't exist, and then she went and created it. I've watched from up close and from afar, and I appreciate the consistent enthusiasm and passion that they both bring to the work they do. They've created a platform for so many people. In doing work that's great for them, they've also done work that's great for so many other people. Lots of love for Rina. So that's amazing. Singer-songwriter Peter Katz.
Um, Joelle, look at you. This is a brilliant way to start off a show because like I'm like blushing, like I'm all feeling tingly now. Like that's a great way to start these off. But no, I love Peter, and he is the perfect example of kind of people that we've crossed paths with that are just these remarkable human beings with beautiful souls, and they come into our path. So that was so beautiful, so kind.
Yeah, he's had a ton of success, obviously as a musician, but he's transitioned through the pandemic into a speaker as well, and he's able to blend the speaking and his music, which gives him kind of this unique thing that other speakers can't do. So he's all up in the same world as you now with the speaking and doing incredible things.
This is a good reminder. I should be reaching out to him to get him to come to our conference. We should get him on stage. So that was great.
Absolutely, yeah. Someone else that's in the GTA. So I like to start the interviews by sharing with our listeners how we know each other, which is showing the importance of networking, of building community, of relationships. So in our case, this is the first time that we actually talk like this. We've never met in person. We've been Facebook friends for years. We've been in the same circle, both in the Toronto area, and because we're both entrepreneurs, we both run or promote events, we're both in the speaking world, we have over 200 mutual friends on Facebook. So sometimes you look on Facebook, you have 11 mutual friends, you have 20. Having over 200 is pretty remarkable. So it's kind of shocking to me that we've been in the same universe for a few years and have never met. So I think that maybe that's why I wanted to get you on as a guest, is to have that official introduction. So that's how we know each other. I'm glad we're actually speaking now for the first time. And I mentioned that we're going to dive into Speaker Slam. We're going to focus on that. But I like to go all the way back to the beginning. So, when I talk to musicians, when I talk to entrepreneurs, people know them as these successful people. They're at the pinnacle of their industry. But there's a story there. Nobody started as that success. They've gone through the ringer. There's stories, there's lessons learned, there's struggles. So I like to go all the way back to the beginning to kind of have a trail of how that person became who they are, their beliefs and their skills and their traits and what they've developed and the vision that they've had all this time. So let's go back to the beginning. So when you think back to your childhood, what comes to mind? This is a while ago. Let's think back.
This is a while ago. So my parents were divorced when I was quite young. And so I spent most of my childhood between two households, and both of them were very unhappy. On the one side, there was a lot of sort of unhappiness, cruelness, controlling behavior. And on the other side, there was alcoholism and a lot of neglect. And so between those two situations, I tended to spend a lot of time in my room. And I think being in my room, I became very independent, and I dreamt, and I think sometimes when you're in an unhappy situation, you spend a lot of time dreaming about what it can be like when you get out, what's something that you can do, how can you have an impactful life because you've felt so contained for so long. So I think if I really think back, probably those moments of solitude sort of shaped this desire I have to be seen and heard now.
And spending all that time alone in your room, what were you doing in there? So you were dreaming a lot. Was there anything as a kid that you were really into that helped you to pass the time?
So I definitely wrote stories, I journaled, and I would read, but mostly I would fantasize about the kind of life that I would want. I always wanted to be an exchange student. I wanted to go to university. I wanted to leave. I lived in a very small town with 500 people. I wanted to move to the big city. And so I just would envision, just one day how great life was going to be. And I became very independent, just very independent. And I think those skills have just really stayed with me my whole life, that I'm very self-sufficient. I can make anything happen for myself. And it kind of started there.
And as a kid, was there anything you wanted to be when you grew up? Was there kind of like a first dream of what you could do for a living?
I have no recollection from when I was really young, but when I was a teenager, maybe around 16, I had the most amazing law teacher, and we threw out the school books and we went to see Midnight Express, and we would go to the courtroom. And I had this fascination with that, and I wanted to be a criminologist. And so I joined the John Howard Society and I joined Amnesty International. And that was really the foundation, because a lot of things I've done in my adult life have been around projects with the homeless or people in the streets or the youth. And I think it came from that, and so that was where that seed was planted. It's probably my earliest memory, nothing to do with speaking, but just making an impact and helping to shape people's lives.
And to this day, do you love true crime? Most people I know just love true crime. The true crime podcast, Netflix is all about true crime and their documentaries. Are you into that stuff?
I am into true crime. I'm also fascinated with anything that kind of shows the dark side of humanity. Like I love watching Locked Up Abroad or Locked Up, those whole series, anything to do with war, anything to do with torture or terrorism. I don't know why I'm fascinated with that, but the darker side of humanity, and not in a, I don't revel in it, but I'm fascinated by it. I guess just human behavior.
Yeah, I think a part of that is, we strive to be good people. We strive to help others. But when you see what we're capable of, as humans on the dark side of things, you realize that we all have that darkness within us that under the wrong circumstances, maybe you could be brought to that place. And I guess to see others that have done that, there's lessons to learn there about, where did things go wrong? And if I was stuck in a situation, would I be capable of those horrible things? And I guess it's maybe the human condition that it draws you to that, because that's, maybe that's not who you are. It kind of broadens your horizons of what is possible as a human, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I have empathy. I do definitely have empathy in life. And I think I can almost look at any situation. And when you look at people who are on the streets or who are in addiction, or even if I look at my parents, everything can be traced back to something that happened when they were younger. And so once you start to understand that, it makes life a lot easier to understand and to forgive. And so I think that's why I'm fascinated. And a lot of times there's a show called I Am a Killer. I love that show. And I cry through that show all the time, because you see these horrible people that have killed someone, and they always show their whole childhood. And inevitably it always started with abuse or being, raped or something horrible. And it makes things very easy to understand.
Yeah, you hear that, kids are never born bad. Like there's not a baby that's just this evil entity. It's created over years of neglect or bad parenting or something.
Yes, for sure.
So if I met you at 12 years old, who am I meeting? What is 12-year-old Rina like? So this is getting a little bit older in this story here.
Okay, so 12-year-old Rina was really an overachiever. And I was valedictorian. Going into grade 8, I was valedictorian. I actually had an opportunity to be a page at Queen's Park. In Canada, the Parliament buildings, I was one of 800 students chosen. I was in the enrichment program. Like, I was really an overachieving child. And I think I channeled all of my youth angst into those dreams that I talked about, just wanting to be able to make impact. And so I was just out there trying to be the best version of myself at that age.
Do you think that you saw that maybe as your way out? Like if you were exceptional at different things, that opportunities would present themselves to get you out of there?
Yes. And I think I felt so invisible in my home life, my whole life. And it was a chance to be visible. Like if you are the valedictorian, you are at the front of the room. And if you are winning competitions, and I played a lot of sports as a kid, and I have lots of ribbons, and just anything there was, I was involved. If it was student council, I was on it. Like I was just involved in things because they were ways for me to be validated and to feel valuable in a world where I maybe didn't. So I was all in to sort of excel at everything I could do.
Do you think that's why you like being on stage? Do you think that's a part of it? That's the spotlight that you get?
I think so, because I remember winning public speaking competitions for the Legion. in grade school, and I would go to the bigger competitions, and there's just this rush of being on stage and all eyes on you and listening to whatever you wanted to say. And I always had like crazy speeches. Like everyone else would be talking about their weekend at their grandparents, and I would be like, Rick Hansen, is he really a hero? Like I was just, I don't know, I just wanted a chance to just be controversial and be out there and have attention on me. And it really, I caught on fire at that young age with speaking.
I think that all of us really want is just to be seen and heard. I think
Yes.
almost every relationship that goes horribly wrong is that someone just didn't feel seen or heard. I don't know if that's how I feel anyway.
I agree. And, the whole foundation of Speaker Slam is creating a platform for people to be seen and heard. And for both Dan and I, when we started it, that was everything. And to this day, we're like going into our 7th year. I see the deep desire people have to be seen and heard. And some people that have been invisible their whole life, it just gives them that one moment of like, something I have to say is valuable, and people are going to listen and see and understand. And all of the pain that I've had in my life wasn't for nothing. It was for something. And now I'm going to use that to make an impact. And that huge desire is what actually fuels the whole success of our business.
Yeah, I've had success in the network marketing industry, building business, helping people. And one of the things I've seen is, everyone has a different reason for why they're building a network marketing business. Usually it's another source of income. For some, it's traveling. For some, it's whatever. They like the services or products. But you'd be surprised how many times it's just for someone to feel like they're a part of something, that when they're a part of your organization and you see them and you respect them and you're, organizing events and you're bringing them here. A lot of them say, this is the first time in my life that I feel like I belong somewhere, that I'm a part of something. So you see that condition, like almost anywhere you go, is some people will do more just to be seen and heard than they would do for money or for other things.
For sure. And I think that sense of community is so important. And I think whether like Dan and I met in Toastmasters, and I think that is another organization where they create a sense of community. And when you have these communities and they have conferences and they have conventions and people are coming together, and they always have people that have the most sales or the best salesman, the best speaker, they're just ways that we seek to have connection and also to be validated.
A lot of times when I hear someone say that they want to be a public speaker, they want to get better at being a public speaker, people just say you need to go to Toastmasters. For our listeners that aren't familiar with Toastmasters, can you share just a little bit of information about what that is?
I love Toastmasters. They're just a community of people that want to help people get better with speaking. They have a format. I have respect for people that go there because they're working through their fears. They're working at putting speeches together. They get up in front of the room. They have activities they do to be better in all kinds of ways, from telling a joke or introducing someone or running a meeting. It's a very valuable foundation for a lot of people. I think it only goes so far. I think it just kind of gives you the basics in speaking. But for anybody, especially, when everybody has hobbies and sometimes they go to paint groups or cooking classes, but if you want to just be heard or share your voice, it's the greatest place to go to make friends and build community and to just practice that very basic skill of just speaking.
So as we keep moving forward, you're getting a little bit older here in this story. So at 16, if you and I were friends when you were 16 years old and you invited me over to listen to some music, what would we be listening to? This is if you're a music fan. Not everyone is. What are there any favorite artists or albums or songs that you would be playing at around 16 years old?
Okay, so I was a huge fan of Good Rockin' Tonight. And when I was even younger, my mom would let me stay up till midnight so I could watch it. I used to pray when I would go to sleep that God would let me marry Michael Jackson. I would play that record over and over. I loved Billy Joel. Those are two completely opposite stars. And I had the Rocky Horror Picture Show album, and I would just play it on loop. So those are some of my favorites. Chicago. I love Chicago. But I would listen to the top 40, and I loved I loved music, and staying up late to just hear those songs. Oh my gosh. What about you? Do you remember what your favorites were?
Absolutely. But I want to touch on yours for a second. Man, Billy Joel has some incredible songs, Uptown Girl and Piano Man. And man, he's so incredible. With Michael Jackson, sometimes it's good, I guess, when you pray and you don't get what you want, because I don't think you'd want to be married to Michael Jackson. So he's amazing musically, but
No,
I don't
no,
think
I
you'd
grew out
want to
of
be.
that. I had posters though. I had t-shirts. I just loved him so much. I don't know what it was, but I guess everybody did when when they were young and he was popular.
Yeah, I don't know that we'll ever have a global superstar on his level.
I
You
don't think.
know, you had like the Beatles as a band, and then Michael Jackson. It was like this guy wasn't human. It was
Right.
crazy. Yeah, yeah. Who was I into at 16? I was big into the rock and grunge. So at 16, so that was, I guess, 2001. So for me, that was Stained, that was Rage Against the Machine, Nirvana, yeah, that kind of stuff. I Later on I got into more of the singer-songwriter stuff, but I had the teen angst at 16, so
It sounds like it, right?
yeah, I was into that rock stuff. So where in your story did you start to get drawn towards entrepreneurship? So most people are not entrepreneurs. Most people, we're told by society that you should go out and get a regular job. I mean, someone should hire you. You should work for someone else. You should work Monday to Friday. You get the same paycheck every week. It's good to know the amount of money that's coming in every week. It's a different breed to be an entrepreneur. At what age does that kick in?
So I moved to Toronto to go to university when I was 18. I quit. I tried again. I went to Ryerson. I quit. And then I took a step off the path, and I went down this very dark path for many years in my life. I made every bad choice. I dated every bad guy. I did every bad thing, things that people would be shocked if they knew me, if they found out. And I got to this point when I was actually 30. And so 10 years have passed, and I have a new child, a new baby. And I'm thinking like, this baby is going to make my life amazing. And now I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to make her life terrible if I don't do something, if I can't have a transformation in my own life. And so really it was out of necessity. Like I needed to do something. So I was 30 years old. I started running events for plus size women and their admirers at a nightclub. And the minute the doors opened, women flooded in. We had like 200 people. It was a huge success, and so I caught the bug then, because I was creating something that I wanted for myself and that I was being successful with. And then they would come from everywhere, all over the place. And then a lot of them would be wearing the same kind of sexy club wear, because there wasn't a lot for larger women back then. So I started a clothing store, and I would bring my racks to the event. I would sell clothing. And then there was a need for dresses for weddings. I opened up a clothing store, and people would come from all over Ontario for dresses. And I started to make that connection. Like, what do I want and need, and what would I benefit from? And I would create it. And apparently there were many others that would want it. And then what else do we need? What else do we need? And just filling that, instead of just thinking like, what do I want to create? Like, what do I need? And then creating where the need was, and then just building community around that. So that I caught the bug, and I loved it. It was very fulfilling to me to be able to be in control of my destiny and creating things that people were loving so much.
Yeah, I've heard that being an entrepreneur is essentially you are a professional problem solver. So you look at the world, you see where there's a problem, where there's a need, and you fulfill that need. And people are willing to pay a premium to have their problems taken away, or their challenges, having everything solved for them. So I guess in your case, it's you yourself looking at where there's a need for something, and with billions of people on the planet, if there's something you need, most likely other people need it. You can see that when you go on Google. Like, you can Google anything and someone's already asked that question and the answer is there. So
That's right. And even in speaking, so when I'm working in our program right now, I will tell people when we're trying to discover what they're going to speak about, I say you need to think about what you want to speak about and what somebody is willing to pay you to speak about. So you can't just speak about something that nobody wants. So the same thing happens with business. It's like, what can I create? Like, what skills do I have? But who's willing to pay for this? And so I always start with myself, because I think, what do I right now I have business ideas in my brain, and I'm like, I want this. So if I want this, I bet you somebody else wants this. So like, I've got these in the Rolodex because, and that's what I keep track as an entrepreneur. Whenever something comes up that I desperately want and I can't find, I'm like, okay, I might do this one day, or I'm going to put this on the back burner for the next time, because that's the gold, right? When you're looking and it's not there.
You mentioned at 30 you became a mom. How did that change you as a person? So I don't have any kids. I hear that, someone that does have kids can't properly explain it to someone that doesn't have kids. Like, it just changes you. Suddenly there's this entity that will not survive unless you fulfill, your role as a parent, and it just changes you completely. That maybe even if you're a great person, as humans, there's some level of being selfish. And for the first time in your life, you're not the most important thing at all times.
Joelle, it was completely overwhelming. I'm going to tell you this, like, no one really preps you for that. It is, especially as a single mom, it is mind-blowingly overwhelming. Like, every minute of every day, this child, right? This child eating and changing and sleeping and taking care of them and buying them things and doing things for them. And it never ends. Like, it just never ends. And so all of a sudden, it's this overwhelming burden matched with this overwhelming love. Like, you love something like you've never loved anything before. And so they balance each other out, and you don't actually even mind the amount of work, because you love it so much, and you love it, increasingly every day. And so with me, I think my daughter was like the best thing that ever happened to me. She's been my motivation, for the last 20 years. And she has made me a better person. And I always tell the story, like, because I mentioned I had this kind of really dark life, and I pulled myself out of it for her. And I went to this program, and I took entrepreneurship, and I won awards actually for being a small business, creating my small business. And I was really proud of myself for doing it. And I picked her up at school, and she was 4 or 5 years old. And she was coming behind me in the hall, and I could hear her with her friend. And she was saying, "My mommy's a businesswoman." And she was bursting with pride. And I was just like, thank God that she can actually be proud of who I am. And like, so it's just this like nonstop motivation to better yourself, and you have no choice. That's the incredible thing. Like, you have no choice but to keep doing better and keep pulling them up, because they're so reliant on you. So yes, overwhelming, but definitely for the better.
So you started that event, and that event led to opening a store. Did you mention to me before that store ended up being multiple stores?
Yes, so I had a store up in Woodbridge, and I had a store in Toronto. We were creating a clothing line overseas. And I can't even tell you, it was the most fulfilling thing in the world at the time, because we were selling dresses. So it was a very hard thing for plus size women to find. So on the weekends, people would come from all over Ontario for Mother of the Bride, prom dresses. I would have women crying in my store every day because they could look beautiful to go to a wedding, or maybe it was their wedding and their mom needed a dress and their bridesmaids needed dresses. So like, it wasn't just like, it felt like it had a purpose to really meet a need that people desperately wanted and just change their lives. So for the longest time, this was such a powerful experience in my life.
And was it from hosting those events, as the host, normally you end up on the mic kind of guiding and organizing everything. Is that how you ended up as sort of a public speaker? Was you just ended up in front of people on a mic from those events?
I think being in a leadership role, it was less about speaking, but it was more about just being a leader. So in those events, I had a leadership role. When I created my store, I was the leader of the store. And so I would go to trade shows, and I would be at the front. And I learned very quickly that the most powerful person in the room is the person at the front of the room. Like, you can go to a networking thing and give out business cards to like 30 people, or you can be at the front of the room, speak one time, and everybody knows who you are. So I learned, because I'm very efficient, right? So I learned very quickly, if you could get yourself to the front of the room, you could do less and make more impact.
Yeah, for those that are money driven, I would always hear those that are at the front of the room, those that are on the mic are the ones making the most money in this event. So yeah, so people that are money driven, keep that in mind as well. Um, what were some of the jobs that you had leading up to becoming an entrepreneur and opening the stores, running events? Did you have any just like horrible or memorable jobs that our fans will like to hear about?
All of my jobs leading up to that were very like I was a teenager working at Golden Griddle. I worked at Tim Hortons. I worked a little admin job helping a car company. I had done nothing. I had accomplished nothing really. So when I came into this, starting my event, it really was leaning into the skills I had from when I was young, just being a leader. Like, for example, when I was 12 and I told you I was a page at Queen's Park, I had to come to Toronto and I didn't have a place to stay, but they wouldn't let you come unless you had a place. So I lied and said I did. And then I told my mother I had a place. So at 12, I was trying to find someone to help me get a room in Toronto. So now I'm here alone, navigating the city, going to the mall, going to the movies. Like very few 12-year-olds are living alone in Toronto. But everything I've done has just been to sort of build that independence and that leadership. And so all of those skills just came in useful when I started a business.
As entrepreneurs, there's normally some resistance. We're used to hearing get a good education, get a good job, play it safe. Being an entrepreneur, that's risky. That's a pipe dream. What is it? Most 95% of businesses fail in the first 5 years. Like the numbers seem stacked against an entrepreneur. Did you ever come across that resistance from friends, from family members? And if so, how did you overcome that to push through and still be an entrepreneur today?
It's interesting. When I had my clothing store at one point, I was so proud of it. I had this beautiful location in Woodbridge, 2,000 square feet. It was gorgeous. And I was very proud. And my mother came up to visit. And when she came in, she said it was nice. And then later on the phone, she said, we just wish so much you would get a job at Bell Canada on the phone. Like, when she wanted me to be the call center person at Bell Canada, she really, she really in her heart felt that that was going to be more security for me, to be more fulfilling. And so I understood that both my parents worked blue collar jobs their whole life, worked their whole life until they could retire in their 60s. So it was unfathomable that I would just be taking the kind of risk that I would be taking. And it is risky with entrepreneurship. Like you could be having a good month or two and you could lose everything, or you could have months where you can't pay the rent. And that's the truth. So I understood, but at the same point, I was like, this isn't just my job. It's my dream. It's my independence. It's my purpose. It's me making my way in this world and being seen and validated. So to give it all up for a $15 an hour secure job, it's crazy. Just crazy.
Yeah, and it's tough as an entrepreneur because there's so many things that have to go right. There's so many factors. It's not just that you're talented and you have a clear vision and you have a service or product to offer that people want. It's like you have to hire the right people. It's taxes, it's employees, it's all these different things. You can have an employee that's stealing behind your back. There's legal things. You run into the pandemic and with no fault of your own, things just get shut down and you can't pay rent. And what would have been a successful business just gets eradicated by a global pandemic. It's so tough being an entrepreneur. Yeah.
That's the truth. And, it's a continuous situation of having to pivot, cut your losses, innovate. I often say that I've walked 10,000 feet towards those last 3 feet to gold, because it's just a constant journey and you got to keep moving. And when everything falls apart, you got to reinvent and start over. You have to have a certain personality to be a successful entrepreneur, because it's not for the faint of heart. Like it is scary. And there's lots of times where what you're doing is not working and people will hold on for dear life. You have to let go and move on to something different. So that's one of the things I'm glad with my business partner. He's amazing and we work together really amazingly, but we're just constantly trying to innovate, because that's the main secret to success.
And you definitely can't have a fear of failure. because you're going to be going from failure to failure. What did I heard a quote? I think it's like being an entrepreneur is going from failure to failure without a loss of enthusiasm or something like that. But
It's
yeah,
true.
it's essentially you need to fail forward. It's you're going to try something, it's not going to work, you're going to learn the lessons, you're going to recalibrate, you're going to set the new goal, the new compass spot, you're going to move forward, moving a little bit more in the right direction than before. You're going to fail, you're going to do it again, all the way to the goal. But those that can't handle those failures along the way are not cut out to be entrepreneurs.
And the problem is people internalize them. It's like, you have a small failure. It really is a win because it's helping you with your guidance system tweak a little wee bit. But for some people, they internalize it and they beat themselves up and they say, I guess I'm not good, or I'm not meant to do this, and they give up or they get stuck in it. Like, the most powerful thing you can do is just be like, okay, great, that didn't work, so I'll try this now. Like, and so you have to have that spirit of not taking those losses personally.
Well, looking back to opening those stores, running those stores, what would you say were the pros and cons of having done that? What are the pros of having your own store and seeing that through to fruition and that journey? And then what are the cons? I guess the bad things that come along with that.
Well, I think I learned by having my clothing stores, I learned certain things about business. I learned that you had to be innovative to continually get customers in, that you had to be competitive with your pricing, with your strategies. But more than that, I learned the most important thing is that the success of any business relies on the creation of a community. And for me, I had my plus size planet community from my events. And when you have a solid community, they will support you no matter what you do. So you don't have to be spending huge money on advertising or Facebook ads, or you keep building the relationships. So when we started Speaker Slam, it was that same skill of just building the community. And we've always approached our marketing from that standpoint. And to this day, it's always the community that continually comes out or supports us or is there for us in anything we're doing. So that was the good thing. On the negative side, one thing I did find is that I hung on to my store longer than I should have. We went through the recession in 2009 and retail died for everyone. And I hung on for a couple of years just by my fingernails because it was my identity. It was so powerfully connected to my identity. And that's what happens for many entrepreneurs, that letting go of my business made me feel like I was letting go of myself, letting go of who I was in the world. So I hung on. And this time I promised myself I wouldn't do that. So I'm very aware that if anything should ever shift, we're not there now, we're blossoming, but if anything should ever shift, I will let go and adapt. Like, there are many things that I can do and can create. I don't want to hold on to something after it's no longer viable.
So for your stores, there was the recession, 2008, 2009. Was there also at that point the online stuff that was coming in, like the Amazons, the eBays, the Kijijis, that made it hard for traditional stores to have success?
So during the recession, all retail died. And what happened was people became more conscious of price, and they would shop like at Winners. They would shop online because it was cheaper. Why would they pay me for shipping when they can pay Amazon or they can pay another store for shipping, free shipping? And so things became very money related. So before, it wasn't about money, it was about style, it was about supporting a small business. But when the recession came in, people were like, what's the best deal? What's the cheapest thing? I couldn't compete, right? And
Yeah.
so I realized that business was just being done differently, just like how the pandemic has shifted how we do business. I can't even believe that the pandemic has normalized people spending $80 on Uber Eats now, right? That's now normal. Remember, there was a time when you might spend 25, 30 bucks on pizza or Chinese. I order all the time with my daughter. It's $80 every time, but the pandemic normalized that because that's what we got used to. So the recession did that for us back then.
And you actually ended up on Dragon's Den. This was for the stores, right? For a business idea. Can you talk about that experience? Like, was that intimidating? Was it awesome? What was the results? People love Dragon's Den.
Okay, so this is a crazy story because I'm going to attribute this to a big part of why I got into Speaker Slam. But I get on to get to go on the Dragon's Den, and I'm really excited. I'm there with my business partner at the time. We're the last people to go up. I am cool as a cucumber because I know my business inside and out. I think I have a great business. Everybody else is nervous. They're pacing. I'm relaxed. So finally they call us. We wore these like long gowns, dresses from our store, and we had to go across that platform and down the stairs and out in front of the dragons. And there are like 4 dragons. That's it. A producer, a camera crew. It's like this really small setup. And I start and I'm like, hi, my name is Rina and I'm here with my store. I could not even breathe. Like my body betrays me. And I'm trying to say, calm down, but I couldn't, like my heart was racing. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't get the words out. I was rambling. And finally, I thought, okay, I've blown this. I've definitely blown this, but I slowed myself down. And then I said, okay, I've lost everything. I'm just going to tell them my heart now. So I throw myself out there and I'm just like, I tell them why I care, why I'm passionate about this business, what it's doing for women, our success. I think we'd had $700,000 in sales that year. So I told them everything. So by the end, 3 of the dragons they came in together, they offered us 250K. And they said, we don't like retail. It's a horrible business. It's a horrible time for retail, but we like you. Like we love you guys. We love your work ethic. We loved your passion. We want to invest in you. And we turned them down. Okay. So we turned them down because they wanted 50% of the business. So we turned them down. And Joelle, this is like those moments where you think, what was the highlight of your life? They give us a standing ovation, the dragons. They're giving us a standing ovation. They're hugging us. They're like, you made the right decision. That wasn't a good deal for you. We're so proud of you. And I just felt like the queen of the world. So I walk out of there and then like a month or 2 later, the recession comes. And all I could think about was, why did I not take that deal? It may not have even gone through because of the economy, but the relationships we would have built, the things we would have learned working with them, I regretted that decision. But in that moment, I will never take back the way that felt in that moment.
That's awesome. I was a finalist on Canadian Idol back in the day. So I had my moment of, in front of judges and standing ovation. So surprisingly, I can actually understand what that feels like for you. Right. I have another quote here from an amazing individual. This is from Darius Bashar, who is an amazing photographer. He's like gone viral on Instagram. He has this amazing series called Taking Photos with Strangers on Instagram. So I met him at a networking event. Actually, I think I met him at a speaking event. So this is what Darius has to say. He says, Rina is a visionary, a woman on a mission to change the world through storytelling. Fierce, creative, kind, no time for bullshit. That's a good quality to have. She shares her vision and beliefs, building community everywhere. I love Rina so much. An inspiration. My life, the city, many communities, and the world is better because of her big heart and her commitment to her mission.
Oh my God.
You have one tissue with you. This is a one tissue interview. So
I love Darius more than anything. And he is a brilliant person. And it's interesting because he's been on our stage. He's been a judge. He's going to be on our stage at the conference. And I said to him, because he's so brilliant at what he does as a photographer, and he works with huge celebrities and huge influencers in our community. And he has this new project, Strangers from the Streets. I cry through every single episode. I love the humanity of them. I don't know if you've watched some of them. I love the humanity of them. And I said, I want you to talk about that, the legacy, the humanity. And so we have such a love relationship. So that's so beautiful to hear.
Yeah, he has, as a photographer, he has a way of somehow capturing the essence of a person in a picture. It's not just that they look good, but it's like, that's them. It's like the people that know that person and love them go, yeah, that's them. Like you captured their spirit somehow in this still photograph.
Yes, absolutely. And with this Strangers on the Street, he captures them kind of off guard and disarms them. And you just see their vulnerability come through because they're kind of shy, and he makes them feel so beautiful. Oh my gosh. I want everybody to see those because they're so powerful.
Yeah. And he's literally walking up to strangers on the street. So for them, it's like they're on their way to work. There's this random dude, like, what does he want? And yeah, it's the way he talks to them and like, oh, hey, you look so cool. Or like, oh, you look really beautiful. And, and that could come off as creepy, like from the wrong person. I just watched the Jeffrey Dahmer TV show, and it's like the way he got people is he would try to take pictures. So it's like, there's the precedence there that this could be kind of weird, but Yeah, he's amazing at what he does. And if you meet him and you know him, he has this like spirit to him, there's like a lot of depth there.
I think a lot of successful people have that beautiful soul and it comes through. So it's not always just a business idea. It's their spirit and their essence is so beautiful that people want to work with you or be in your presence or support you. And he definitely has that.
So let's dive right into Speaker Slam now. So we've worked our way up to that. So how did you meet Dan? And where did the idea for Speaker Slam come from, specifically for Speaker Slam?
So Dan and I were in this Toastmaster group, and I'm 17 years older than him. We would be the unlikeliest of friends, but Dan is so emotionally intelligent, so mature, so unique, so deep. So we just started to talk and we really got along. And we were both on the board of directors in our group, and he was doing Landmark. Have you ever maybe heard of or done Landmark?
I have so many friends that have done Landmark, and they all tell me that that's what's missing in my life. Like they all swear by it. It was life-changing for all of them. I looked into it. I almost did it a few times. Then by the time I was going to do it was the pandemic. So the option was only online. And for me, the big thing is networking, meeting people. So to do it online wouldn't have been what I was looking for once that became the thing.
And to do it online doesn't capture the experience of it. And I had went through the forum, and for me, it was sort of like a very powerful experience, one and done. And I was out, and I'm glad that I did it. Dan was more involved in it, and he was doing the senior project, and you had to do a senior leadership project, and so something of value in the community. And he asked a bunch of his friends, and they had all kind of said no. And he came to me and he said, "I'm kind of shy to ask you this, but would you do this with me?" I said, "Okay, listen, you need to know we're going to have 12 people in a library, but if you're okay with that, I'm willing to do this with you." And he said, "Okay." So we were trying to come up with an idea. So we started going to events in the city. We went to all kinds of speaking events or personal development events. And we were sitting at an actual speaking event, and he turned to me and he said, "We should do a competition," because we both competed at Toastmasters. And I said, "Oh my God, Speaker Slam." And from that day forward, Joel, it just caught on fire. We just, our very first event, speaking of Canadian Idol, I got Farley Flex as a judge.
Nice.
And I'm very good at leveraging. So I kind of got Farley in, and because of him, I could get some other judges, and then I could sell to the speakers that I had these great judges, and then I could sell to the audience. I had these great speakers. So on the opening night, we had like 100 people at Revival nightclub, and it's just snowballed from there.
And you mentioned that almost right away, you just said out loud, how about Speaker Slam? Where does the name come from? Is that a play on Poetry Slam? Where does that come from?
It was a play on Poetry Slam, because I'd heard of poetry slams. And because this was going to be a speaking competition, it just made the perfect sense, Speaker Slam. And it's just, you'll often see my partner up there on stage. He always yells out speaker, and the audience yells out slam. And he does it over and over. It's so catchy. And I'm so happy with that name. It's really served us over the years.
And what skills does Dan bring to the table that complement your skills? You mentioned one skill already. When you think of Dan, what does he bring to the table?
Okay, so many people are jealous of our partnership because we really struck gold with each other. And I always joke, everybody needs a Dan, because often when you're an entrepreneur.
Sorry, that should be a t-shirt that you sell at Speaker Slam. Everybody needs a Dan.
Yeah. And since I've made those posts, people come up to me and they often say, "I need a Dan. I need a Dan." Like, everybody needs a Dan, because it's easy as an entrepreneur to have ideas or dreams. We all do. We all have all these big pipe dreams, but you can't do anything with those unless you can execute on them. So in our partnership, I dream, he executes. I dream, he executes. And he's very process oriented. So from the very beginning, he was great with video, the audio, producing the events, creating our website, our back end. And to this day, like if we're creating a boot camp, I'm doing the content, I'm running it. He's in the back creating the Zoom setup, he's zapping everything. I don't even know what he does. He zaps things to charts. He does everything. He makes sure all the emails and sequences goes out, like all the important things that keep a business running. And then I get to just dream these amazing dreams, like the Momentum Conference. Like I can put that out there, and he's already back there with the video team and the audio team, and he's dealing with the theater, and like we can come together and just shine. So it's been literally magic since the day we started working together.
And how long did it take from that moment where you yell out, "How about Speaker Slam," to that first event where you said there was about 100 people? What was that period of time? How long did it take to execute on that first vision?
I want to say 3 months.
Whoa.
In 3 months, we had the venue, we had everything set up, we had a logo made. And at the time, Dan thought we were just going to do this one-off event. And when it was finished, it was such a success. I was like, okay, we're going to do this monthly. And he was like, wow, right? So let's see what happens. And we started going monthly. And I think a couple of years in, maybe 2 years in, we quit our day jobs. We both had these jobs. He worked in business systems and a business analyst, and I was an operations manager at a digital recruitment firm. And we both sort of like burnt our boat. You know that Anthony Robbins quote, we just burnt our boats, and we were just all in. So that was an exciting time.
Now that you've been doing it for, you said 7 years, I believe. How important is it to have that long-term vision, that, you're not going to sell out a 20,000 person arena in your first year, knowing that you have that vision for the future that you're building towards step by step, and it's a process and it's momentum and it's all these things. How important is that long-term vision?
Okay, so I'm not actually a vision person necessarily, because I learned that you can create some vision, but life is going to throw curveballs like a pandemic. It's less about long-term vision. I mean, you have the values and the desire to create impact, but it's adaptability. It's being able to innovate. So all along the path, we'll do something like, so for example, we cut our jobs, and then the next day we thought, we are not going to support ourselves off of one event. Like, what are we going to do now? We created the emerging speaker program, and we were running that, and then our emerging speakers were starting to get offers to speak professionally, but they didn't have the skills or the tools. So we created the booked and paid program. When the pandemic came, we couldn't have live events. We started online competitions. So it's just being able to innovate and adapt to the situation. And so I think that's what we're both we have a lot of strength in that area.
Can you take our listeners through the process from having a vision for an upcoming event through to the event itself takes place? So maybe just kind of the, the Cole's notes of what the steps are. It's not just, I have this vision, then suddenly it's a great event and people are there. I mean, there's marketing, there's so many steps, and most people that don't run events have no idea how you go from A to Z there.
The interesting thing that most entrepreneurs have the idea to create something, but something is nothing unless you can market it and sell it, right? You need to be able to do those two things. So for us, we have the logistics. We'll get together, we'll have a meeting, we'll have a Google sheet, and it's all the details. We need to get speakers, we need to get judges, we need the event, we need to book this, we need the photography, all the details. So that all goes in. And then because we've been doing it for so long, it's finding the right speakers, it's finding the right judges, and then bringing them all together and then creating the marketing. Now we got to market them. We create videos, we create posters, we create templates for them to use. And now we have to get people out. We need to get people to come. And we've had 200 or 300 people at Lula Lounge for almost all of our events over the last few years, pre-pandemic, and the couple we've had, the one we've had back. But so now it's getting people to come out. And we learned things along the way. For example, we could really leverage our speakers network by promoting them. So they get a poster and they get a video, and then they'd share, and then their people would come out. So it's a whole machine that has to work to kind of make this come together and be successful.
Yeah, most people that have never run an event or promoted an event have no idea how hard it is to get bodies in a venue. It is so difficult, man. I've run hundreds of events and promoted them. And man, when I have friends that for the first time are like, oh, I had an idea for an event, I just booked a 300 person venue. It's like, you have for your first event to get like 30 people in a venue, like you have no idea how hard that's going to be. And they always, no, man, I have I know, and then they end up having like a horrible event that falls apart, and people don't get it. It is so hard, despite having, an amazing performer or an amazing speaker. It's just people are fickle and plans change and they don't commit, and it's suddenly it's raining and people decide that they don't want to take transit if there's rain that day. Like there are so many factors. And if you have a massive RSVP list, like 50% of the list isn't going to show up, and you learn all these different factors. Can you help our listeners try to understand just how hard it is to fill venues, regardless of what size?
It's crazy, and it's venues, but it's even programs. Like you see people create this coaching program, or they create this amazing retreat, and they think they're going to send out an email and everyone's going to rush and sign up and fill it, and then they don't, and they're devastated. And I know that is the trickiest thing. So what I've really come to learn is it's momentum. It's an energy that you have to create, where you get some people interested and then they're promoting, and then their people are coming out and then other people hear about it. It's momentum, and you have to just go all in to do it. It can't be an email that gets out or a post that goes out. And, it makes me laugh. Those people that are on social media and they have 100,000 followers, people think, oh, if you have 100,000 followers, you send out an email and like 10% will come. No, those people can have an event and they're lucky if 12 people show up.
It's like 1%, Yeah.
Right. And so it's energy that fills a venue. And so for Dan and I, what people don't even realize is the amount of energy that we generate for now almost 7 years, constant, day in and day out, just all the different things that we do to continually build that energy to fill a venue. It is definitely work.
So when you think back to that very first event, so I think you said it was Revival. I think you said, there's 100 people. What thoughts, memories, emotions come back when you think to that very first event that kicked off this insane journey you've been on for 7 years? What comes back to you right now?
I was so proud. It's a beautiful place, by the way, if you've ever been to Revival. And they had all these lights coming down, like little, almost like twinkly lights. And it was full. And we had these amazing judges. Farley Flex is over there. The speakers are on stage. They're making magic. Marcos Mendoza wins that night with this like powerful performance that has the audience in tears and cheers. And when we finished, we were like, oh my God, we did this. We actually filled the venue, and it was beautiful, and people loved it. Like it really, really landed on people. I was like, I think we're onto something here. So it was pride. We were both really, really proud.
So you mentioned Marcos Mendoza, who won that night. I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't get some kind words from Marcos. So
Wow.
Marcos is one of my favorite speakers on the planet. And you're talking about, the power of marketing and getting videos out there and creating a buzz. I was running some big networking events in the GTA, and out of nowhere, I come across this video called I Am from Marcos Mendoza that went viral, had, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of views. And I thought, oh, this guy's amazing. So this is networking, right? I find him on Facebook and we have a ton of mutual friends. So I'm like, okay, well, he's probably in the GTA. And I think my networking event was in like 3 days from that point. So I invited him out as a guest. He came out, we became friends, eventually became a guest speaker at a future networking event. And he's been a guest on this podcast. So we've done a lot together. Love that guy. He's so talented. He's so powerful as a speaker. He's one of those guys like Darius that have that soul, like there's this depth to them, So I reached out to Marcos knowing that he did win one of the Speaker Slam events. And this is what he has to say. He says, Rina's an extraordinary woman of vision, discipline, and social engineering. It's because of her tenacity and will that so many people have thrived. As a coach, she is not only qualified, but also committed to results. As an entrepreneur, she works with her moral code and attracts like minds towards any initiative she pursues. Our generation is fortunate to be led by her. I'm happy to call her a friend and colleague. That's the great and powerful Marcos Mendoza.
I need to get these edited. Like I need these, right? Like these are some pretty amazing people. And we have, he did win our competition. I actually do feel a little emotional because they're such beautiful people and to just hear such kind things, but we became friends. We've done lots of different things together. He just won our recent competition. He's going to the Grand Slam. We've spoken at different events together. So we have this rich history, and he's just a phenomenal, beautiful person. So to hear that back is it's really nice.
On the day of an event, do you feel massive pressure, or at that point it's like, have you done all you can and you're just excited for the event, or is it a mix of both?
By the time an event comes, we've already sold probably 200 tickets normally. And we've done so many that it's just go time. We wake up, we've always had a ritual, Dan and I, especially in the events where he used to pick me up and we go to the theater, we'd go for lunch first. We'd always kind of connect over lunch, and we're going to do this. And we get into the theater or to the venue, and it's go time. Like, I have certain tasks, he has certain tasks, we just do them. And then we get to the show. And the interesting thing is that Dan is very pragmatic when it comes to, he just gets in, he's in his own zone, right? He's just dealing with everything. He's calm. And then he's meditating. I am like a ball of energy. Like, where's the speakers? Where's the judges? Are people getting, and I'm stressed because for me, until everybody is in their seats, I'm anxious. Once the show starts and everyone's seated, it's our time to shine and we're great. Dan is just even keel. You can see him laughing, talking to people, shaking hands. So I think it's good that he kind of balances me out, but we've done it so many times that we know what we have to do.
That's such a good quality to have with him, where it's like there could be a storm brewing, but he's just this calm force that like makes everyone feel like everything's fine, even if it's not,
Always.
you know? Yeah.
I get bitchy. Like, I'm a little snappy. Like, I'm hot. Like, where is everyone? He's cool and calm. So everybody needs a dad.
Everyone needs a Dan. Yeah, that's the main thing I'm taking out of this, is everybody needs a Dan. So people fear public speaking more than they fear death. Why do you think that is?
Because death could be private, but public speaking is going to be witnessed by many people. And the biggest fear that people have is that they're going to forget their words and look like a fool. And, I told you the story about dragons and where my body betrays me. A lot of times when you get up into a public speaking setting, you could have the speech memorized, you could know your material, you could be a great speaker, but your body takes over. There's this physiological response where your heart is beating, you start to tingle. And the pressure of that, like, please do not embarrass me in front of hundreds of people. The cameras are there. My family and friends are here. It can be very, very painful for people. So I get that. And a lot of times, like, as we get closer to the event, our speakers start to get more and more nervous. And I tell them to do less at a time when they think they need to do more, that like they're outside trying to memorize their speech, trying to go over. I'm like, you need to put that away now, because that obsession with memorizing is going to like lock you down on stage. I always say, get up, take a bath, have some tea, relax. Like, you've got this. Like, just, it's mindset. At that point, it's mindset.
Yeah, you got to get out of your head and into your body at that point, right. I guess.
Yes.
Yeah. What makes a great public speaker? Do you have any tips for our listeners? Anyone that's thinking that they would like to step on stage at some point, someone that thinks, they know they have a story to share, but that fear, man, that fear.
So there's only three things that any speaker really needs to think about. The first one is a powerful story. And a lot of speakers come to us, they want to talk about the message. And they get up almost like an expert or an authority. They want to talk about resilience. Like, I'm going to teach you how to be resilient, or the importance of resilience. It never lands with people, because people say, who the hell are you to talk to me? You need to talk through your story. And the story just needs to be personal and genuine and interesting. Share a story. Okay. Number two is a lesson. At the end of that story, there needs to be a profound lesson for the audience. It can't just be, I went through this story and I learned I could get through anything, because that's too personal. It's got to be, we all have moments that knock us down. We've all been brought to our knees. We all have everything we need within us to get back up. It's got to be a powerful lesson for everyone. And finally, the delivery just needs to be authentic. And I see a lot of people that are performative, or they're talking in a way that's awkward and uncomfortable. It's just got to be from the heart, like authentic, so people can feel it. You bring those three things, you have the winning formula.
Yeah, the worst is when there's a host that has a mic, and for some reason they feel like they have to have that kind of DJ voice, like, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to, and you're like, that's not how you talk. Like, why? why does everyone that have a mic feel like they have to kind of get that little thing going with their voice? But why do you think it's important that, even if you don't want to be a speaker that's on stage, like you don't want to be a Tony Robbins or a Les Brown or whoever, why do you think it's important that everyone develops some skill when it comes to public speaking, or even speaking, maybe not public speaking, like getting on a stage, but being able to communicate properly?
Because those three things that I just mentioned, that winning formula is the best way to connect with people and affect the outcome. So you could be trying to get a raise at work. You might want to, you want to be, you might need funding for something. You might want to get a job, but being able to speak and connect, use your voice, share a story, smile, be real, and have people like you and want to help you, work with you, give you things, give you opportunities. The person with the most inspirational voice is the most powerful person in any room. So if you can't speak, or you can't share a story, or you're nervous, it's hard to get ahead in this world.
Yeah, one thing that stuck with me is I've heard that storytellers rule the world, essentially. And it's not just, thinking of like Bob Dylan or Neil Young storytellers or authors, but even when it comes to like tech companies, like Steve Jobs was a great storyteller, and he's able to sell a product because of the way he's sharing a story when announcing a new iPhone. Do you think there's any truth to that there's this undeniable power if you can become a great storyteller, regardless of a product or service, regardless of whether you're selling, even if you're one-on-one?
Even if you can think about having gone to a conference recently, or even if you're out in a group of people, the person who's a good storyteller is the most entertaining, likable person in the group, right? Otherwise, it's a lot of awkwardness, or it can be boring. But if someone's mesmerizing, they're funny, they're telling a story, you're engaged. And so that storytelling skill is what makes people like you and resonate and connect with you. Now, I'm on Facebook a lot. I share lots of personal stories that are nothing to do with my business. And those are the posts that people message me privately and be like, oh my God, I love the stories about your daughter, or I love this story. Those are the stories that make people want to be my friend, connect with me, support me, not another Speaker Slam promotion piece. So storytelling is important.
Yeah, you just made me think of being like around a campfire, being at a party. It's like you need a few good storytellers placed in those different scenarios, or else you have like a very boring, campsite thing, or a very boring party. You need somebody that's kind of injecting the stories into it.
That's right. And, not everybody has that skill. And people, for some reason, feel that if they can motivate you, or if they can teach you, that they'll be more valuable. But you can go on Google, so you can go on YouTube and learn anything, right? You can learn anything. So we've moved beyond that education piece, and we're into that, like, let's connect heart to heart. Like, let's inspire each other. Let's share a laugh together. Let's find out what we have in common. Those are powerful people.
So after 7 years of events with Speaker Slams, that's hundreds of speakers or thousands of speakers, I don't know. Are there any speakers that have really stood out to you? Sometimes there's a power to it, someone like a Marcos, that there's a power to them just as speakers, period. Some people, it's the story they're sharing, like Jessica had like a very dark, intimate story that people had to hear. Is there anyone that really stands out? I'm sure there's a lot of great ones. I'm sure a lot of them are worth mentioning, but are there any, it doesn't have to be based on the skill as a speaker, but maybe moments that stood out that really captured you or the crowd? Anything coming to you right now as I bring that up?
So the speakers that really stick out in my mind are the ones that have taken a single speech on our stage and leveraged it to create an entire movement or career. I think of someone like Mike Shorman, who spoke on our stage. He had Ramsay Hunt disease. He'd never spoken. He was low in his life, and he took that one speech and from there launched an entire movement. He had paddles up. He became the unbalanced paddleboarder. He just crossed 5 Great Lakes on a paddleboard, the first person with a disability to do that. He's now being paid to speak. He's now got a book. Like, he launched an entire movement of this one speech. And Gina Hatzis, she's one of my best friends. She did the Too Much Woman speech. She was traveling around the world speaking at events. She spoke with Lisa Nichols and Liz Gilbert at the Women's Summit. She has a book. When I see speakers take a speech and leverage it to create an entire life out of it, not only am I thrilled for them, I'm thrilled for us, because it's such an exciting position to be in, to be the platform to help people. One other speaker, this is probably my favorite story, is someone that Dan and I went to Toastmasters with. We were friends with. He has a stutter, Jose Perenian, and he spoke on our stage. He leveraged it to get on the Archangel stage. He leveraged that to get on TEDx. Now he's a speaker making 10K a speech to speak at like Google or for TikTok. It's mind blowing. So those are the kinds of things, like, they happen all the time. And that's what makes his job so fulfilling.
So Gina, she's the one where her videos have been viewed like 50 million times or something crazy.
She's got probably 40 million views, and we had Unstoppable Tracy. She had over 50 million views. We probably amassed over 500 million views on our speakers' videos during that period where we were working with many viral partners. Now, Facebook changed things and stopped that from happening, but during just that would be maybe 2-year period, those 500 million views really brought a lot of recognition to us and to our speakers.
So a lot of those videos have gone viral, millions of views. Even your own video, you have one on human connection that has, I don't know, 5 million views. What do you think makes a video go viral? You know, is there a formula there?
There's definitely a formula. In fact, it's the foundation of our speaking program, Emerging Speakers, because we learned very quickly. We would send them all the videos after the competition, and they would get back and say, okay, we're going to take these 2. And every time I would notice what they took and what they didn't take. And I realized what the formula was the most powerful story with the most universal lesson. So if it was too specific for one person, it didn't always land well. But if it was something that everybody, so a lot of topics like self-worth, forgiveness, resilience, those kinds of huge topics that are so important to people, legacy, mother-daughter, father-daughter, like father-parent stuff that everyone can relate to, and things that draw, like, that can kind of pull on your heartstrings, give you shivers and tears. Those kinds of stories would really, really work well. So we started really coaching our students when we started the Emerging Speaker program to lean into the power of storytelling, and then to craft that universal message that moved from me to we, so that the more people that could resonate, the more people would watch it. And I think that was the secret of success for a lot of our speakers.
One thing that I've always found unique about Speaker Slam is you have different themes for different events. So it's not, you know, there's an event today and it's got these great speakers, and then an event next month and it's just different speakers. There's themes, which means the speakers have to actually, you know, come up with new speeches or change their speeches, or they wait for the right event that fits them, you know, perfectly. So I have a few of the upcoming themes. So there's Body Beautiful, Against All Odds, Empowerment, Belonging, Personal Transformation. How do you come up with these themes? You know, where do these come from?
Well, first of all, I will say when we first started, it wasn't our intention to have themes. And very quickly, probably the second or third, I think the second event, we noticed there was this inspirational quality to the speeches, and people were inspired and they were hugging and crying. And we started to say, we could be more than just a speaking competition. We could be an inspirational speaking competition if there was a need for it, not motivation. You know, not externally. I'm not trying to motivate you to go do something. I'm inspiring you from my heart. So we started to try and come up with topics. Overcoming adversity was one of our first. Oh, wow. The stories that came out of that, right? Like, you can imagine the Body Beautiful we bring back every year because it just brings out such amazing stories. And not just what you would think. It's not just weight loss stories. It could be people who've had disabilities and had to come to terms with their bodies, or people who felt pressure to be thinner or bigger or taller or a different race. And like, these themes just touch the heart, and like, they struck a chord with people. So we get together and we brainstorm every 6 months on what's going to come up. And we lean into the things that we know will be inspirational and uplifting. We've tried to stay away from too much overcoming adversity and like more sort of like positive, uplifting things. So they're inspiring and they bring the room up.
Have you had any themes that have been really out there? Like when you look back at all the different events, has there been any that have like you kind of really went out there with something different that's not super universal?
No, the only one I can think about is we did a fitness and motivation night. It wasn't one of my favorite nights, and I think it's because I'm not a big, huge fan of fitness, but I think because, there's a certain kind of person that comes to our event. There's like this kind of spiritual entrepreneur, right? And so like the fitness crowd had a different sort of energy. And
Was there too much machismo in the room?
there was too much. I don't want to say, I don't want to say this because there's so many spiritual entrepreneurs that are very fit. I'm not saying that, but when you just approach things in terms of fitness, you're thinking the physical, and I'm really, a lot of our people, they're more emotional, they're more spiritual. It's more what's inside. So there's just an energy that night that I didn't love. That I think was our first year. So we didn't bring that theme back, but
It's on the cutting room floor from
it
that
is.
one.
It is.
How would you say that Speaker Slam has evolved from that first event 7 years ago to, let's say, the last event that you guys did in person?
Well, the business in general has evolved because we went through the events, and then we had to add training so we could survive. And then we had to add the booked and paid so we could assist our speakers. But our biggest transformation came after the pandemic, because the pandemic really meant there was no more live events. And at that point, not only were our competitions live, our training programs were live downtown Toronto. So it was kind of a scary time, but we had to evolve. And we launched our online competition and our online training programs. Now, I can guarantee if I had said to our people pre-pandemic, do you want to do this online? They wouldn't have come. There's no way they would have come. There's no way they would have had a Zoom, But because of the pandemic, we had to, and people accepted it. Now we're reaching people all around the world. We have people in Europe in our programs, in Africa, all around the States competing in our programs. They would have never been able to reach us before. So that allowed us to really evolve. And then the conference is really finally the next evolution for us, because Dan and I had this vision of a conference years ago, a little bit different than what we're doing, like just vendors in a room. We've gone way past that, but that idea that more than just a competition, that we could create something big in the speaking community.
So this conference that's coming up, it's not a competition.
So here's the interesting thing about it. We do a grand slam once a year with the best competitors of the year. Marcos will be in that grand slam. So we actually wanted to create the conference around it so that the day was a full day conference, and then the evening is the grand slam where people can come and witness it. And I thought it'd be great to have that energy from the day coming into the evening. So it was like, it gave the grand slam new meaning, because you're not only just winning that, but you're also like highlighting the conference. So we're bringing both things together.
So let me know if this is incorrect, but I think I remember from following Speaker Slam years ago before the pandemic, you would do an event, like a big event, almost quarterly, where there'd be winners of those events, and they would compete once a year at the Grand Slam at the end of the year. Is that how it used to be, or how it is?
It was almost monthly.
Monthly.
And
Okay.
then by the end, we would have like 12 people. We'd take a couple winners from each, and we'd have 12 or 14 people at the Grand Slam in November.
So the big deal is like winning the Grand Slam. That's like you're essentially the speaker of the year, basically.
You're the speaker of the year. And what I'm really excited about this year, this is another evolution. We have taken the winners from our live competitions and the winners from our online competitions, and they're all coming together for the Grand Slam. And we have 6 Americans, I believe 5 people from the States and 1 person from Montreal flying in to compete. And that was always a dream. Like, could we be big enough that people would actually fly in from another country to compete? Is it that important to them? And the fact that they're doing it, oh my gosh, like that is such a victory for us.
What would you say is your favorite part of being a part of Speaker Slam so far? I don't know. It's a very broad question, but what is your favorite part of being a part of this?
I'm going to go back to when I was talking about shaping people's futures. And there's this woman, Shireen. She's one of my favorite people. She spoke on our passion speech here, which was this, at our competitions, we would always allow a few people we pull their name and they'd come up on stage and speak. We'd ask them a question. She's an Indian woman, and she spoke on stage, and she was shaking, and she was just filled with adrenaline, and she went on to compete and then compete again and go into the Grand Slam. She's had viral videos. She's been the featured in an award-winning documentary about her life. You know, she's been on immigrant women committees, like leading them. She's run my God, like there is nothing in the world that makes me happier than seeing someone blossom like that, just from that single seed planted where they get to share their voice and be seen and heard. So powerful.
Do you have any crazy, funny, or memorable stories about any of the events you've done? Maybe there's things that went horribly wrong or fell apart that maybe people don't even know about to this day. Like, just as a professional, you overcame it, you put out the fire. Is there any moment that kind of stands out over 7 years that is either funny, memorable, tragic, anything?
You know, crazily enough, I was just talking to Dan about this a couple days ago. I said, we've had all these years of successes. We've never had any real failures. And he's like, don't you remember the 2019 Grand Slam? And I just cringe when I think we had this Grand Slam, and you have to imagine, like, it was a huge event, and we had these judges from Goalcast to come up, like, from this huge platform that made all our speakers go viral, and they were judges. And we just miscalculated about the scoring. We didn't have things done on an iPad yet. We've evolved. Everything was manual. So when the scorecards went back to the person in the back that was tallying everything, it ended up taking so long. And so we had like Goalcasters there, and they were going up to speak. And then we were in the background just going like, keep it going, keep it going. And they were just like trying to like, oh my, I cringe when I think about it, just like keep winging it like for like 10, 15 minutes.
Which feels like an eternity for them when they thought they'd be up there for 2 minutes.
And that was just horrifying. We evolved after that and started using iPads, but in that moment, it was just like, and it's not just, we were up there trying to fill the empty space. You want to talk about fear of public speaking. It's like, it's one thing when you have a speech and you forget it, but you have nothing to say and you're just trying to make, oh my gosh. So that was a little bit of an awkward, painful moment. We've recovered.
So I was on the website, so speakerslam.com, I believe, and .org. There you go. And there was the brand builder competition. So what is that?
We're excited about that because in our booked and paid program, we focus a lot on, I teach a lot that speaking is 80% marketing, 20% speaking. And so the marketing comes from your brand. And it's, what is your position in the marketplace? So we work on that heavily in class. They create positioning graphics with their picture and who they are, what they serve in the market. And so November is actually Entrepreneurship Month. So I said, it would be amazing because our conference is actually 2 days. On November 18th, we're doing a virtual online conference. We have amazing speakers like Stu McLaren coming in from Tribe. Our coach, Sean Q, is going to be there. We have a lot of great people. And what if we had a brand building competition where any entrepreneur could create this branding graphic with their picture and their position in the market, and they could share them. It'd be a great way to kind of share about the conference. And then on the day of, the top 10 will be going in front of the judges, and they'll have what I call a special sauce bio. It's my thing where I try and teach speakers that even if you feel you've accomplished nothing, like even if you're trying to create your bio and maybe you've just done a couple things, create something special. I get to put that I'm the founder of Speaker Slam. I created a platform for homeless youth to find their voice. I get to say that I'm the founder of Platform. Like I get to say that I've done these things. I created them. So if you don't have anything, like if you haven't won an award or you haven't accomplished anything big, create something because now you've done something unique. So they're going to have their bio, and their picture, and then pitch themselves to the judges. So I'm excited because it's going to bring in not just speakers, but entrepreneurs.
So speaking of awards, with all your hard work over the years, some recognition has started to come in. There's been some award nominations. And then in 2020, you won the Woman of Influence Award. What does that mean? What does that mean to you? What does that mean to be nominated and then to actually win an award based on your hard work and your the difference that you're making?
So, award nominations and award wins are nice because they validate that you're doing something, that you're making a difference. But when you go to those personal development workshops and they always have you do a visualization and they say, close your eyes, envision the best thing you could be doing. Like, you have to do those. I always pictured myself in this sort of off the shoulder green dress, and I'm at the Woman of Influence Awards and I'm talking on stage. So when I actually won that award, it was like this manifestation moment and I went out and bought a green off the shoulder gorgeous dress. Let me
Oh,
just tell
you
that.
better after
I
having
did.
that
I did.
vision.
I got the pictures to prove it. So I have this green dress. I won this award, and it's very prestigious, and it just meant so much to me for many reasons, and most of all because it was something that I felt like I manifested for myself.
You mentioned a second ago, you founded something called Platform. What is that for our listeners that aren't familiar with Platform?
So a few years ago, I used to have a blog called TTC Tales. I still have a Facebook page for it. And I would blog about my stories of meeting people on the TTC or on the streets. And often they were homeless or had addictions. And I would just share human connection stories. It was something that was really important to me. Maybe it comes back to my whole humanity and the human condition. And I would share these stories and people were really connected to them. And I started to think about, wouldn't it be amazing to create a program for people who were going through these struggles to find their voice? And so I founded Platform. We started with the shelter for homeless youth. And I went in and I worked with the youth on their story. And it was probably one of the more fulfilling things I've ever done, because giving them the opportunity to create something. And then we had an emerging speaker Christmas party and I brought them in. We raised money so that they could have new clothes and new little suits. And they came in front of the room and shared their story. And some of them were beautiful. Some of them were a little unpolished and angry, like, this is all the horrible things that have happened to me. And afterwards, our group, our community, was hugging them, talking to them, offering to help them, like giving them, they felt so seen and heard, probably for the first time in their life. It was just the most fulfilling thing ever. And also it was probably one of the reasons that I won the Woman of Influence Award, because and it ended up being something that they thought was really meaningful as well.
You've given some advice for our listeners that are thinking of becoming public speakers. Do you have any advice for someone that would like to do what you're doing? Maybe they have a vision for an event that they could run, a community they could build. Any advice for those people?
One thing I'm thinking about, advice that I got when I was starting this, we were meeting with some people and they said, let your creations, let the need move the creation, like let it drive the creation of something. So don't create and then hope to fill it. Find the need, the community, and then create for them. So my advice is really like for anybody that wants to create an event. So let's imagine they want to do a retreat or an event around wellness. Start a community for wellness. Like if you want to create something for parents, start an online community for parents, have small groups, have small events, like build your community and then create the event. Because like we talked about earlier, you could have a great idea for a parenting summit and you put it up and then no one comes because you haven't taken the time to start from the foundation and build the community.
Yeah, I've heard Gary Vee say that the number one thing that you're looking for as an entrepreneur is actually attention. So once you've built community and you have attention, it's easy to monetize. You can do an event, you can release a book, you can start a podcast. So it's easy to monetize once there's eyeballs and attention. And that's basically what you're saying is build the community, and then you can easily monetize once you've already shown that there's value there for those people.
Yes. So that's probably the first advice. And the second advice is always leverage. It's what you can do by yourself is one thing, but once you start partnering with other people that are powerful, because it's the momentum again, right? So if I partner with Darius, who is coming to speak at my conference, and Blake Fly, who's coming to speak at my conference, and Marcos, who's going to be on our Grand Slam stage. I'm now leveraging the energy and the communities around these people to make my event a success. So if you think you're going to do it alone based on your own name and you're an unknown, it's very hard. So leverage other people by partnering with them or collaborating with them.
So you talked about the pandemic a little bit, that you guys, during the pandemic, the live event industry was decimated. It was hit as hard as any other industry. It was hit as hard as, the airlines and whatever. And again, I was running a bunch of events, and I haven't done a single event since the pandemic started. Maybe because I could see your posts about just how heartbreaking and how hard it was. You would organize an event and you'd spend money and you'd book things and you'd have speakers ready and prizes and sell tickets. Everything's there. And, on the day of, you could wake up and the government says, effective immediately, all events, need to cease. And it's like, you're supposed to have an event tonight that's not going to happen. You can't get refunded on most of that stuff. All the marketing that, you paid for posters and online ads, you don't get that back. So I almost, like, through you seeing how heartbroken you were and the struggles of you that was trying to push through that. Whereas I just stepped away. I'm like, okay, there's other things I can do until this opens up again. Can you, I guess, share maybe the lowest point of the pandemic, like before we really knew what it was? There was no vaccines yet. You didn't know if you'd step outside and just die from being outside. What was the lowest point for you, and then how we kind of built back from there?
Probably the lowest point was, it was in October of 2020. We were like, the pandemic started in March and we put everything on pause. And then things opened up. So when they opened up, we brought back this event that we'd had on the back burner. And the week before the event was to happen in Toronto, we went back into lockdown. And that was one of the most painful. We had sold tickets, we had speakers, judges, everything. And so we moved it to Hamilton because they weren't on lockdown. So a week before, all of a sudden we had to get a theater, fill it, bring people in, and we actually made that happen. So it was both one of the lowest and the highest moments for us, because we did it. And so then we're on stage, and it was just this surreal feeling of looking out into the audience, because we could only have 50 people in a theater. So we had like seats and seats between everyone. They had a mask. And if you've ever been to a speaker slam or seen it, everyone's hugging and, kissing each other and cheering and everyone's just kind of sitting with this mask quietly. It was like something out of the future, but we did it. We got through the event. And then a year or two later, we did another event months ago, before the summer, when people were just putting their toe back in, and we were one of the first people out there doing one back. Same thing, 50 people spaced out. And we were like pushing through, and we're like, we're going to make this happen again. Like, it's important. It was important to us to do it, even though we're online. People want the stage, right? People love the stage. And that was a huge part of our brand. And so we wanted to push it through within the guidelines of the government. And so it's been painful, bittersweet.
Would you say things are mostly back to normal now when it comes to the events?
So I've been to a handful of conferences in the last month, and it's a different world. I find it such a different world. And I think there's a lot of trepidation. They're sparsely attended. However, there's been one or two successful events I've been to, and I notice it's because events have changed now, and I believe they're going to be changed forever. The expert model, the motivational speaker, the big sponsor coming in, like all that kind of world is gone. The events that I do see working are the small community-based ones, where they're coming out to support each other again. They're bringing their energy again. But the other events, the energy was low. It's been tricky. I think people are gun shy a bit.
Yeah, it's funny. I've on the music side, like, I've attended, I don't know, 20 concerts since things have opened up. So I've been to a ton of concerts, and it's like, you're there and there's like 30,000 people. Like, people, for some reason, for concerts, they have no trouble going out in droves. So I guess maybe it's a little different for a concert than an event. But I was in the Toronto area for 11 years. And then I moved back to my hometown of Ottawa during the pandemic. And I'm here looking around for any kind of personal growth event or networking event or anything in Ottawa. There's nothing. It's like no one even wants to try. Like that's a niche that I should probably be filling, but it's like nobody, nobody wants to touch live events outside of bands, basically. So
We had our first speaker slam back last month, or in August, actually, in August. And we sold 200 tickets and it was full and people were hugging. And I was like, I finally had a glimpse that we could get this back, right? I think we can, I think people are, it's a bit of a pull, but I think we can do it. And it's because we have a strong, loving community. But yeah, personal development is something that people have been scared to just start back up. I think when you're bringing in a big name or a big band, people have always been conditioned to like, I got to go see this. But personal development, they're like, oh, is it worth spending the money for
yeah,
right
I'll
now?
read a book at home alone with my
Yeah.
my cat or whatever. Yeah. Would you say that the way that you guys adapted during all the lockdowns was to start up these different online events and online resources?
So I think that was our biggest way of adapting. And I remember before the pandemic, I had an idea about doing an online competition. And at the time we were like, oh, is it going to work? Dan was like, I don't know if it's going to work. So we had no choice but to try. And I think our last online competition, we had 100 people register. So that has been huge for us. Like just the reach that we now have, it's really been positive for our business.
And do you think the period of lockdown where there was no events, does that make you really appreciate the events that you've just done and the events that are coming up?
Oh, for sure. I think I'll even feel emotional at our Momentum conference because, it's not just the business that suffers during the lockdown. It's like our mental health, every one of us was such a struggle. People were trapped, not just physically in their homes, but like in their own pain. And there was no way of expressing that, right? We didn't even really know we were in it. It was so surreal and people are hurting. And so I think coming back to live events is giving people a chance to like begin healing, like come out and be social again and it's okay, and to get back to normal life and it's okay. So being part of that is, to me, really special and important.
Yeah, so many people have struggled with mental health during the pandemic with all the lockdowns, the isolation. Did you struggle with that at all? And if so, how did you overcome those dark days? Any tips maybe for the listeners that are still going through that?
I didn't struggle at all until I was fine. I was in a new relationship, so I was blissful for the first year and a half. I started to struggle when the Freedom Convoy stuff was happening, because I supported the Freedom Convoy and it was such a divisive, painful time in Canada that it was horrifying to me. And I struggled so bad with just what was happening. So I think that was some of the darkest days. I'm very, very glad that's behind us. And even within my own community, like that was a divisive issue for people that were vaxxed or not vaxxed. As a business owner, Dan and I had different positions. We both value freedom and we both value personal choice, but we had different outcomes for ourselves. And so our community was divided. It was a really dark time. So I struggled with that. The only reason I got through it is that pretty quickly things started to change in Canada with things opening up. So that was the only way out of that.
During the period of time where there was like the tightest lockdowns where like nothing was open, did you pick up any new hobbies? Are you like a master chef now? Do you bake bread? Do you knit sweaters? Any new hobbies?
Yeah, I have to admit, like I used to watch Martha Stewart when I was young, and I was just fascinated by her because she just made everything special. Like, here's my homemade jelly, and I'll take a ribbon and wrap it around, and like, let me just crochet this tablecloth. She just made everything special. So I got a new condo downtown, and so I was decorating like crazy. I was buying plants. They kept dying, but I just kept buying plants, like 100 plants in my place. And I was cooking and baking things. And like, I was really getting in touch with that side of me. So I think I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to try and keep developing those hobbies.
So when I was on the website, I also saw that you had a speaking journey quiz. What is that? Why should our listeners go and take that quiz right now?
We created that because we offer so many things in our program, from emerging speakers to booked and paid to people who just want to find their voice. So we created the quiz just so that people could have an entry point and see where they are. We offer things for professional speakers. We create video reels. We have amazing video marketing, and we do things a little bit different than other people. And so we thought if people did the quiz, they would find out where they're at and what's the best entry point for them and how we can help them. For some of them, it is just to get on stage one time and compete, and for other people, they do want to really develop as professional speakers. So we kind of guide them through with that quiz.
I have a quote here from someone that was a part of Speaker Slam, had a video go viral. Here are some kind words from Jessica Moforth. So Jessica says, Rina is one of a kind. Her passion for community, culture, and collaboration is inspirational. She goes out of her way to support others, and she knows how to throw one heck of an event. I was so fortunate to have had an opportunity to work with Rina as I competed at Speaker Slam, and her guidance was truly transformational. If you don't know this beautiful being, you need to. Rina, thank you for all that you do and for your commitment to making an impact and touching the lives of many. You are a blessing. XO, Jessica Moforth.
Oh, I love that. I did have a chance to coach Jessica on her speech, and I love Jessica, and her story, and having that story. I met her prior to it, and I thought, you have such a unique outlook on having someone gone through such adversity. The way you handled it was so unique. This is a story that needs to be heard. And when we worked together, getting her on the stage, and she placed in the top 3, like, she was so powerful. That is exactly what I love to see, is when speakers are able to just share a unique insight about what they're doing. So that's beautiful to hear back from her.
So I have to bring up that you've mentioned this as well already during this interview. During the pandemic, you've been posting about these dates that you've been going on. So you talked about sharing stories, and people like your stories. They don't all have to do with Speaker Slam. And, these stories, some are funny, some are sad, some are memorable. Can you share with our listeners any of these dating stories that stand out to you? There was one where it was like you had to drive for several hours. There was some that were kind of creepy. There's a lot of stuff with your daughter that makes, for your daughter's always chiming in and chipping in with comments that are hilarious. Anything you could share with our listeners?
Yes. So after I ended a relationship at the beginning of this year, and I started, dating like everyone, and the dating apps have really corrupted the original way of dating, and
chivalry is no longer alive. Anyways.
And what's interesting about dating is that the way we used to develop with someone, like if you were lucky enough to get someone interested in you, you put your all in because you got to make that work. But now you can just keep swiping. There's always someone new. And so it's hard for people to have that strong enough attachment to give their all to someone. So I started my dating stories. They're adventures to me. I love them, good and bad, good, bad, and ugly. But I laughed about the one I posted about, I had literally exchanged only a few messages, like, what do you do? What do you do? And he said, do you want to go to Niagara Falls? And what a commitment is that date? Like, imagine a couple hour drive there, a couple hours or drives back with someone you don't even know, And so, but I said yes. Most people would not have said yes, but I said, number one, it's going to make a great Facebook story. But number two, I cannot rob this man of his grandiose gesture, because on the off chance that this is my soulmate, this could have been a great romantic story. But it was like an awkward 6-hour car ride and exchange, but it was fun. I live for these things. People always say, aren't you scared? I'm never scared. If I die on a dating story, that's the way I want to go down. Like that's adventurous. And
she died a hopeless romantic. Yeah.
Right. I'm always in the big search for my soulmate. And it's just, to me, it's fun. It's just a lot of adventure.
Yeah. Your daughter, that's something where your daughter's chipping in, like, Mom, that's like the scenario where it's a serial killer. Like, he's going to kidnap you.
She's like, Mom, you're going to get sex trafficked. He wanted you to bring your passport. Like, she's hilarious. And, it's so interesting how the youth date compared to people that are, in their 40s, and she'll be over my shoulder and she'll say, get out of the chat, get out of the chat, get out of the chat. Like I'm just sitting in the chat as he's typing, and she's horrified. So we have a whole series. I need to keep adding some of the things she says because she's so funny.
I feel like both of you guys could collaborate on a book about dating. That would be pretty entertaining. So as we get to the end of the interview, I like to end with some rapid fire questions. So just some fast questions, some fast answers, just to get to know you better. Are you ready for a little bit of rapid fire questions?
I'm ready.
Okay, cool. So what were some of your favorite venues to run events in?
My favorite venue, we were at Lyric Theater. It had these like blue walls with blue lights, totally beautiful.
What's the biggest event you've organized, and what was it like to have a crowd of that size there?
We've had 2 Grand Slams. One had 500 and one had 600, and no advertising, no money spent, just bringing 600 people together. Wow. Like the energy and the emotion of that was just like probably the highlight of our entire journey.
Yeah, even an event that has like 150 people or 200 people, like if that's the size of the venue, like it's different if it's like 1,000-person venue and there's 150 people, but in an actual venue where the capacity is 150 or 200 or 250, like that's an amazing crowd. So 500, 600, that's like electric. So
yes.
So that's awesome. Are there any new speakers that deserve our attention? Is there anyone on the radar that's just awesome?
I would say our entire lineup for the Grand Slam, like if you make it to the Grand Slam, you're great. Of course, Marcos is a 2-time winner, and he's like, a front runner. And I would say that there's a couple speakers that are coming into the Grand Slam that are so powerful that are just waiting to explode. But I don't want to say their names to give an unfair advantage. So let's see what happens after the Grand Slam.
That's true. You can't be biased if you're organizing. What do you think are the top misconceptions that people have when it comes to either entrepreneurs or speakers or event promoters? Is there anything that, maybe from the outside, people see this as all like glorified and amazing, and any misconceptions about anything that you do?
I'm going to go with the cliche where people think that when you're your own boss, it's a lot easier. You don't have to work as hard, because it is. We work nonstop, and it's like I said, going into 7 years, it's very frequent that Dan and I will be messaging each other at 1 or 2 in the morning. We're working on things like all day, all night, all holidays. Like we work nonstop. So it's not like now you get to work for yourself and get to relax. No, it's probably a lot more work.
Yeah, they say the best thing is you're your own boss, and then the worst thing is that you're your own boss. So
Yes.
What's the best advice that you've ever received? That's super broad, but
the best advice I've ever received, I think I mentioned it earlier when we were in a meeting with Talk Boutique, actually a great business, a great speaking business. And we were trying to do a collaboration with them. And they were the ones that said, make sure you have the need before you grow. And I think we have such a desire to just keep growing things bigger, bigger, bigger. But if you don't have the business to sustain it, just wait till the business is like busting over and it can't contain itself before you create something bigger for it. And that is very good advice for everybody.
Do you have $1 million idea that you're sitting on, or that you have that just for some reason nobody takes you seriously?
I have a brilliant idea that it's not that people don't take it seriously, but I'm just waiting for the right time. But okay, Joel, I want you to imagine this. Okay, this is my dream. I have a beautiful piece of property on the water, and there are chairs and love seats and waterfalls and benches. And it's like a date night restaurant. And you drive in and there's like a little shack, and you can you can rent a picnic basket and get charcuterie and wine and fruit. And then you walk up into the property and there's like jazz music coming out, and you just go sit and watch the sunset or the sunrise. I think this is $1 million idea, and I want to live by the water. So I envision this. So in the next couple of years, like watch for that. And when I'm looking for date ideas, remember I told you everything I create is because I need it. When I'm looking for like romantic date ideas or for all my dating adventures, I wish I had a place like this.
I feel like if you create a place like this, there's going to be a lot of first date wedding proposals. You
Right?
know, it's
Yes.
like, all right, lock this down. Day one, this is perfect. Chivalry is not dead. There are
Right.
romantics out there. I like it. I like it.
Right.
If you need some financial backing, if you need an investor, think about your old friend Joelle here,
Okay,
and
it's me and you, Joelle. We're gonna do this.
let's do this. Sounds good. If you could sit down for a conversation with anyone, living or dead, who would it be and why?
Do you know, I've actually had this question sometimes when I do the 36 questions to fall in love, and I always come up with the same person, and that is Oprah. And the reason I say Oprah is because she was a chubby woman that had a hard time making it in the beginning, and she was kind of looked down on. And we have this perception that when people come into business, you have to look perfect, you have to be the Barbie doll, you have to be skinny, you have to be. And she defied all that to go on to be like a billionaire. And there's just something in that journey that I really respect, and it resonates with me. And I think her.
I have her biography here that have yet to jump into, but I'll get into that. Yeah, she's like one of the most incredible people of all time for sure. My understanding is she was a reporter, and they were like, oh, like you should do a daytime talk show. Like they tried to bury her on a daytime talk show that nobody would watch, and it goes on to be, the biggest show of all time. So it's
Yeah.
the power of perseverance with her. What things outside of events bring you joy?
Outside of events, are you talking business or just personal?
Just anything, maybe you like a
Yeah.
warm cup of soup, I don't know. What brings you joy outside of events?
I have this fantasy to live in a house by the water. So I tend to I'm always booking Airbnbs, even work retreats with my partner at the lake, at the water, going to the cottage with family. So that's a big dream. I'm planning to move February out by the water. That's one. My decorating thing, I don't know where it comes from, but I'm in Canva decorating my house for the next 10 years. I love to just create things, so that gives me a lot of pleasure. And then I think finally, I love my daughter's my best friend. She's 20 now, and we talk every day. We do things, we go for pedicures and massages, we plan things. And so I think those are probably my biggest joy moments.
I love Canva. I'm using Canva all the time to create
For everything.
posters and videos and all that stuff. Are you into music, books, or video games? And if so, do you have any favorites in those categories? So we talked about at 16 what you were listening to, if there's anything else now.
So when it comes to books, the interesting thing, I used to be a huge, I wouldn't even say reader, but book collector, like the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, the E-Myth, Traction, anything by Seth Godin. I used to guerrilla marketing. It was always business books, and I would collect them, personal development books. But I don't know if it's a sign of the new world we live in, but I don't have the attention span anymore to sit down and read a book. I'd rather listen to the lesson. I've gotten to that point where I just want to hear, I'll listen to 1 or 2 minutes of something that Brene Brown says, or 1 or 2 minutes of Seth Godin. Okay, I get it, got it. I don't want to invest the time to read a full book anymore. So that may be a sad thing, the loss of that, but it's a sign of the fact that the world is moving so fast and we're so efficient. And music, I always have my AirPods on when I'm out walking, but it's just top 40 music. I enjoy it when I'm outside.
Do you do audiobooks at all, or that's, even though it's not reading and it's listening, it's too long, a 20-hour audiobook?
I cannot listen to anything without falling asleep. Maybe I gotta stop
Yeah.
laying down, but 5 minutes and I'm out cold. Are you into audiobooks?
Yeah, I'm into books and audiobooks. What's funny is my dad. Okay, so there's a book called Sapiens that's incredible. I don't know, sold 30 million copies. Everyone loves this book, Sapiens. It's like the history of humankind. I've read this book, love it. And my dad has the audiobook, and it makes him fall asleep instantly. So it's his favorite book, but only because it's his method of sleeping. Or if he wakes up in the middle of the night and he needs to go back to sleep, he puts on Sapiens. So it's he's never finished the book. And
Yep.
and anyways, nobody has listened to Sapiens more than my dad, and it's literally as a sleep aid. So I think that's funny.
That's why I think even meditations, I want to meditate and I put on this music, I'm out cold in 2 minutes.
It's a gift. I
It's a
think
gift.
anything that can put you to sleep quickly is a gift.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so this is a scenario that will never happen, but if somehow you're wrongfully convicted and you are on death row, what is your final meal? I mean, obviously you didn't do it, but you get one final meal. What do you
Okay.
take? You can have a drink, you can have a dessert. It's your death row meal. What do you do?
I love charcuterie. That's my big thing. Cheese and grapes and
Oh, you're
crackers.
fancy.
Yeah, I'm going to start with charcuterie. I love lobster and shrimp fritters
Damn.
and dessert. I am a dessert person.
What are we doing for dessert?
Yeah, I'm going to go with like a chocolate eclair or like a cream puff.
I thought because you were fancy with the charcuterie, I thought you were gonna do like creme brulee or something, you
I
know?
do love creme brulee.
I could feel that. I felt the creme brulee. It came to me in a vision. When you find yourself in a rut, what do you do to get out of it as quickly as possible so that it's just a few moments or a day and it doesn't last weeks or months?
Do you know, I almost never get into a rut because I believe so powerfully in the concept of momentum, and that by doing little small steps, you will build energy. So like if I wake up and I'm like, okay, this isn't working, let's just do something else. Let's do something else. And like, so we're constantly building energy and momentum. I'm never in a rut unless it's my diet and I'm continuously lifelong in a rut. But besides that, I'm just flying in life.
We are up to the final quote of the interview. Can you handle, you got that Kleenex? Can you
Can I
handle
get the
one
Kleenex?
final quote? Okay, so this is from somebody that has that loves Speaker Slam, that has participated. I see him in some of the promo stuff, so I don't know if he's a speaker at the upcoming one or what his involvement is, but this is from Brian Fuller, who's a great speaker, who I've worked on different projects with in the entrepreneurial space. So he's a great dude. He's a great father. This guy loves his daughter. You have no idea. So Brian says, Rina is a force of nature. She is fiercely driven to build fun and engaging premium events while facilitating a dynamic community that helps heart-centered speakers elevate and reach their entrepreneurial goals. Rina's passion, purpose, and power can be felt in every room she is present in. As Rina and her business partner, Dan, endeavor to take their beloved Speaker Slam Academy global, they have inspired speakers to fulfill their dreams and make greater connection with their chosen audiences. Through Speaker Slam, Rina has helped me to amplify my voice and has given me the courage to start a movement. That's from Brian Fuller.
Oh my God. Do you know what? I love Brian so much. It's so crazy that that is the person that you would have had for this quote, because we're very close and he's very special. He's just a special person. And he's been kind of lingering in our community and he's just stepped up full force right now. And when you were saying to me earlier, is there any speakers that you can see are special? They're going to about to have a breakthrough moment. Brian was one of the 2 or 3 names that came into my head because he's an incredibly beautiful person and he's a gifted writer. So he did a beautiful job there.
So we're done with the rapid fire questions. We're on to the final 2 or 3 questions. These are a little bit deeper, a little bit harder. So you can answer them in any way that sees fit. It doesn't have to be 1-word or 2-word answers. Do you have any dreams that you still have yet to attain? Dreams that are in your heart that are still alive?
I have a dream I'm going to lose 50 pounds one day. I've been trying that for like 50 years, but that's a dream. I have a dream that I'm going to find my soulmate. I'm very driven by love. And, when I was, even the question you asked earlier about my childhood, when I thought about, be growing up in those unhappy homes in that room, my biggest pursuit was always to really find the love that I didn't feel in my home. So I think that's a driving force for me. My business dreams, they come true every day, but I think those are my 2 big dreams.
When you look back on your life and career, what are you most proud of and what are you most grateful for?
Oh, I'm definitely most grateful that I met Dan because he is the partner of all partners. And I'm most proud, I would even honestly say right now, I'm most proud of how we navigated the pandemic. I think if you put that pressure to a business and you can survive and evolve and elevate, you're gold. So I am very, very proud that we came through that and that we're just on to bigger and better things.
If you were to look ahead at the future, so I don't know, in 5 years, in 10 years, if everything goes exactly as planned with Speaker Slam, everything is as you envisioned, as you dreamed, what does Speaker Slam look like?
Speaker Slam is a 7-figure business. We are just booming with our events and our booked and paid program. I'm getting speakers booked everywhere and they're getting paid. And I am living in a beautiful house by the water where people come up and do like day retreats with me, where there's like a eucalyptus steam room and a massage and they're swimming. And then they come in and we do a whole storytelling life purpose session. And I am relaxed. I'm not hustling. I am totally relaxed.
That is a good vision to have. We are at the final question. This is the most difficult question of the entire interview. Rina, are you ready for this question?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
So if you could go back in time and you could sit down next to 10-year-old Rina. So you're in a room, there's 2 chairs, there's current Rina, there's 10-year-old Rina, you're both sitting there. If you could look at your life and all the lessons you've learned, all the mentorship, the personal growth, the triumphs, the failures, everything that you've learned over your lifetime, if you could provide some words of advice to cute little 10-year-old Rina that's sitting there to help her along the way through this journey, what advice do you give to your younger self?
So I think I would say I'm very spiritual and I believe that we choose our lives. And I believe to little Rina that she chose this life. And this struggles and this pain and these problems and these obstacles and challenges, that she chose the extreme sport level of life because she could handle it. And that as a result of that, she was going to be able to make incredible impact in this world and to leave an amazing legacy, and not to ever think that it was an accident, the life that she chose.
Now, if our listeners, after 2 hours here, they got to know you, if they want to find out more about Speaker Slam, where do they go? And then if they personally want to follow you and maybe they want to slide into the DMs and send a message saying, hey, I love the interview, or I'd love to sign up for a program with Speaker Slam, or whatever, they want to ask you a question or give you a comment, where do they find you online on social media?
So our website is speakerslam.org, O-R-G, and it's Rina at speakerslam.org. But the best place to ever find me, I'm on Facebook. I'm old school. I'm on Facebook, Rina Rovinelli. I think it's Rina Lee Rovinelli. I'm most active there. I'm not really that active on Instagram. Find me on Facebook. Let's make magic. If you're my soulmate, if you want to be a business partner, if you want to invest with me and Joelle at the Dream Date Night event, let us know.
I love it. So as we wrap up, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge you for your courage to pursue a life as an entrepreneur, which is not the path that most people take. It's not the easiest path, but you had a vision for this life, and you've set goals, you're pursuing them, you're striving, you're moving forward day to day, having a vision for Speaker Slam that has created this platform for people around the world to be seen and be heard, which isn't that what we all want, right? That's the basic human need. And Speaker Slam has created a safe space for people to talk about sometimes these darker subjects, to talk about things that are hard to talk about. You make them feel safe enough to share that. And then the internet does its thing and gets that out and it goes viral and it impacts even more people. And, when Jessica talks about rape and things that have happened, her having that courage and seeing how strong of a person she is now and how she's come out of that as a powerful woman, helping a lot of people, that helps other people that have gone through that journey as well. So the impact, there's the ripples, the butterfly effect. You don't know how many lives have been touched by your original vision, you and Dan, for Speaker Slam. And last but not least, I want to thank you for sharing the last 2 hours with me, for sharing your wisdom. And it meant a lot to finally get to know you, because we're in the same circle. I've heard a lot of great things about you. As I'm thinking of my next guest, for some reason, your name popped up, that this is somebody I should be talking to, that there's a lot of wisdom there that she can share with our listeners, and that the world would be a better place if this 2-hour interview existed. So Rina, thank you for sitting down with me. I really appreciate it. It meant a lot.
Thank you so much. And Joelle, this has been impressive. I'm impressed by you. Great questions. I love the quotes. I love the flow and how professional you are. I don't do a lot of podcasts, but I love this experience.
You're very welcome. So to our listeners, to our Rina fans, to our Speaker Slam fans, thanks for sticking with us for the last 2 hours, and we'll see you on the next episode. If you've enjoyed today's episode of the podcast, please take a moment to subscribe, like, comment, and share. What I want to know is, who would you like me to sit down with next for a 2-hour deep dive interview? You can let me know by reaching out to me on social media. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Joelle Martin Mastery. Joelle is Joel. And you can find me on Twitter and Snapchat at Joelle Mastery. So I am done. I am complete. I approve this message, and I'll see you on the next episode.